So in this presentation, I will be discussing how cultural proximity influences the portrayal of feminism in non-Western countries versus that of Western countries. I'm going to be using different scholars such as Uma Narayan, an Indian-born feminist scholar, Kumari Jayawardena, a Sri Lankan feminist activist and an academic, and Iyayi Bayu, a lecturer from the Department of Gender and Developmental Studies from the University of Gondar, Ethiopia. This topic is important because it highlights the differences faced by the feminist movement and how the North-South concept influences that. It also acts to debunk the idea that feminism is a Western issue and was introduced to non-Western countries. The research into feminism and nationalism in the Third World, Kumari Jayawardena, has shown that this is indeed a myth. Jayawardena details non-Western countries' history regarding women's empowerment and women's roles in revolutionary and democratic movements that began in the early 19th century. From this, we learned that for many of these countries, feminism came as a result of injustice and does not have a particular ethnic identity. After we have established the concept that feminism has been created as a response to problems that women face within a variety of the world contexts, we can begin to talk about how feminism is different in Western countries versus third world countries. Bayu discusses this at length in his comparative analysis of feminism in Africa versus Western feminism. One of the initial conclusions of Bayu is that in third world countries, feminism is not found to be the sole focus of the oppression of third world women. Instead, issues of racism and economic exploitation are included in their fight. Interesting, though, he also concludes that African women specifically are often afraid to accept the traditional Western feminist values, and claims that it would be an imposition of Western ideologies that would destroy their identities. This idea comes from the African perspective of feminism, which originated in resistance to a Western rule. This led to a growing social pact between African states and an increase in female leaders, because African feminism not only fights for women's rights, but also for economic exploitation, harmful cultural practices, and also the racism. Further analysis of the works of other scholars in this research topic can show similarities between African feminism and other non-Western countries. It became clear that this idea of feminism represented other important cultural issues that regard race and social classes comparatively to that of Western countries, which mainly focuses on issues regarding women, and more recently, LGBTQ+ and trans rights. Now, how can academic theory and readings be applied to understand this topic better? This distinction can be answered by using the concept of cultural proximity, which can be described as a multi-dimensional concept that explains preferences across national boundaries. By using this concept, we can identify that because feminism does not have its own ethnic identity, it is therefore portrayed as a representation of the cultural issues that are challenging a specific country. This explains why non-Western feminism revolves more around cultural issues such as economic exploitation, because for many Western countries, this is not as prominent an issue. I believe that this topic is important to help us understand the differences in how countries outside of the non-Western areas approach such movements such as feminism so that it can be understood from a different point